3 drifters owed a bottle of rye and could not pay. So they bet a man they had no right to bet. A cowgirl named Zerelda Craw, who had been winning card games since 16, laid down the winning hand. The man she won was not even playing. He was in the corner, finishing his beans. The saloon went quiet. Nobody told him yet. What he said when they did would turn a $3 wager into the most expensive handshake in that county. Stay with me here. This is a small story. No war, no gold strike, no famous gunfight. Just a quiet man, a woman who could outshoot the men in the territory, and one decision in a room thick with cigar smoke. By the end, you will know what it costs to keep a promise you did not make. You will know what it feels like to be handed a man you did not ask for. Zerelda turned the last card, and the 3 drifters went quiet. The one to her left set his cup down hard enough that the whiskey slopped over his wrist. The one across from her stared at his hand, then at hers. He stared at his own hand again, as if the cards had moved while he was not looking. The third one laughed, short and hollow, the way a man laughs when he has nothing left to put on the table. She had not come to this town to play cards. She had come to sell a horse. The horse had sold in the morning, and the day had stretched out the way afternoons do in places where the wind never quite stops. So she had walked into the saloon, ordered a beer, and waited. 3 sat down. They were young, lean, and 3 drinks past wisdom. They told her their names, and she forgot them at once. One bragged about his spread, his brother, his cattle. She was not listening. She was watching their eyes. Now their eyes were on the table, then on each other, then, one by one, on the man in the corner. Silas Penniman had heard the whole thing. He had not turned his head, had not set down his fork. He had eaten his beans and drunk his coffee. He had listened the way a man listens to something he knows will land on his own plate sooner or later. When 3 sets of eyes came to rest on him at last, he set his fork down. He looked back at them, patient, unsurprised, the way a man looks at weather. He set his napkin beside the plate, the way a man does when he intends to leave a place he had planned to stay. The drifters did not have the cash to cover their bet, or the bottle of rye that had started the game. By their own arithmetic, they were $2.40 short of being able to walk out of that saloon upright. So they had bet what they did not own. Silas, the barkeep told her when she asked, was the foreman of the Circle H. He had been with the outfit 9 years. He ran the crew, kept the books, and broke the colts the owner was too old to break. In the memory of anyone in that room, he had never once raised his voice in anger. He was not a man to be wagered. He was the only asset within arm's reach. Zerelda looked at him for a long time. She was not in the habit of taking what did not belong to her. She had won remudas and pistols and silver belt buckles, and she had given most of them back by sunrise. In her years alone on the trail, she had learned that a man can carry a value no currency can replace. She had never seen a man hold himself the way this man held himself in the corner of a noisy room. She had a choice. She could wave them off, take what little cash the drifters had, and call it a night. She could leave the man where he sat and never think of him again. Instead, she said, "I will take what is owed." The barkeep looked at Silas. The drifters looked at Silas. The room looked at Silas. Silas did not move. He finished the bite of beans he had been chewing, drank the last of his coffee, set the cup down, and stood. He walked to the table. He looked at Zerelda. He looked at the three drifters, who had by then found a sudden interest in the grain of the wood under their hands. He looked back at her. He said, "I was not part of the bet, but I will honor it." She held his gaze for a count of 3. Then she gave a small nod, the kind that says, "A deal is struck." For the sum of $3, the foreman of the Circle H walked out of a saloon he had walked into 100 times before. He walked on the arm of a woman whose name he had learned only 2 hours earlier, and he did not look back. What happened in the weeks that followed surprised both of them. Stay with me here, because this is where you start to see who Silas Penniman really was. Would you have stayed in his place? The first morning, Zerelda woke to the sound of a skillet on the iron grate of her camp stove. She reached for the colt on her saddle before her eyes were open, then stopped. She had slept beside armed men often enough to know that cooking was not danger. She sat up. Silas was outside her tent, on his knees, feeding wood into the fire. He had shaved, and his face looked different in the early light, younger than it had looked in the saloon. He had found a tin of coffee somewhere, and there were 2 cups on the stump beside him. She had not given him a cup. He had gone and found one for himself. She watched him from the tent flap for a long time. She had expected sulking, or cold silence, or the stiff politeness of a man counting the hours. She had not expected a man on his knees in the dirt, feeding her fire, with 2 cups ready. She did not know what to do with a man like that, so she said nothing. She drank the coffee when he handed it to her, and the day began. The days after that fell into a pattern. He mended what needed mending, chopped the wood, watered the horse, cleaned the rifles, cooked the supper. He did it without being asked. He did not speak much. He did not complain. He did not ask when they would be done or where they were going. He simply did the next thing that needed doing. The town noticed before she did. The preacher's wife stopped her at the post office. She asked, in a voice that tried to be kind, whether the gentleman traveling with her was a family member. The general store owner, a man named Yancey, leaned on his counter. He said, "I heard you won a man in a card game." Zerelda told him it was not what he thought. Yancey said it was never what anybody thought. By the second week, she had stopped asking him to sleep in the barn. He had earned the cot, and she had taken to the saddle blanket, the way she had slept for years on the trail. She had stopped thinking of him as a thing she had won. She had started thinking of him as a man she was traveling with. The two were not the same, and she could feel the difference even if she could not name it. The test came on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after the saloon. A rider came into town on a tired paint horse. He was one of the 3 drifters, the youngest of the 3, the one who had laughed the night of the bet. He looked ashamed. He asked for Silas at the boarding house. When Silas came down the stairs, the drifter took off his hat. He said he had come to do the right thing. The owner of the Circle H was willing to pay a fair price for his man back. There was a purse of $40 in his saddlebag. The drifter would not meet Silas's eyes. Zerelda had been sitting on the porch, mending a bridle. She did not look up. She wanted to see what Silas would do without her watching, so she made a show of the bridle, and she listened. Silas was quiet for a long time, Then he said, "I told the lady I would honor the bet. I have not finished what I said I would do. Tell your boss the answer is no and keep your money." The drifter rode off. Silas sat down on the step beside Zerelda, and he did not say a word about it, and she did not ask him to. That night, by the fire, she understood. He was not broken. He was not bought. He was a man who had given his word, and that word was not for sale. She had not won a man in a card game. She had been handed the same man he had been before the cards were dealt. That, she knew now, was the rarer thing. 6 weeks passed, and the pattern held. They moved from town to town, the way she had always moved, but the work was different now. He helped her trade horses at the corrals. He helped her man tack in the evenings. He cooked when there was a fire and ate what she ate. He did not count the hours. He did not ask when they would be done. In the mornings, she would come out of the tent. The coffee was on, the fire fed, and 2 tin cups sat on the stump. She would sit down beside him without a word, and the day would begin. The town had stopped whispering. The preacher's wife had started curtsying to her on the street. Yancey had stopped making jokes and started calling her Miss Craw, the way a man calls a woman who has settled into a place. The barber asked Silas once if he was thinking of going back to the Circle H. Silas said no, he was not. The barber said good, because Miss Craw was the best thing for this town in a year. Silas had not answered, and the barber had not needed him to. A letter came on a Tuesday, the way tests always seemed to come on Tuesdays. It was addressed to Silas, in a hand she did not recognize. It had come up from the south on the stage, from the owner of the Circle H himself. Silas read it at the table in the boarding house, his coffee going cold beside him. When he was done, he folded the letter and put it in his pocket and did not say a word. She did not ask him about it that day. She did not ask him the next morning. She let 2 days pass. In her years alone, she had learned that some letters are heavy. A man must set one down before he can lift it back up. She asked him on the 3rd night, by the fire. She said, "What did the letter say?" He took the letter out of his pocket and handed it to her without a word. The owner of the Circle H was offering Silas his old job back, and a raise, and a written apology. There was a purse of $150 enclosed, and a passage paid on the southbound stage. The owner said he had been a fool to let the foreman go. He said Silas was the best man he had ever hired. He said the door was open, and there was no price on the door, and no obligation, and no debt. She read it twice, the second time slower. She read it a 3rd time. The 3rd reading is the one that tells you what a man really means, and not what he has written down. Then she folded it carefully along the original creases and handed it back. She said, "You do not have to stay." He said, "I know." She said, "Why do you?" He did not answer right away. He looked at the fire for a long time. He looked at his hands. He looked up at the sky, the way a man does when he is thinking about something he has no word for yet. He said, "Because I said I would." She said, "That was $4 of rye whiskey and a bad bet by 3 men who are not here anymore. It is over. You are not in anyone's debt, and you have never been. The letter is in your hand, and the stage goes south in the morning. You can take it, and I will not say a word against it. I will remember you well." He was quiet for a long time. He said, "I think you have a better reason than the one I started with." She did not answer. She did not need to. He did not need her to. He put the letter in the fire. They did not speak of it again. They did not need to. The coffee went cold, and neither of them noticed. The fire burned down to coals. She reached for a stick of wood and laid it across the coals. A woman does it when she wants the fire to last. He watched her do it, and neither of them said a word about why. The stars came out, the way stars do in places where no fence has gone up. They sat in the quiet for a long time, and it was enough. Thank you for staying with us through this story. We would love to know what you would have done in Zerelda's place or in Silas's. Leave your answer in the comments below. Subscribe and tap the bell if you want more stories like this one. We will see you in the next one.